Hey kiddos, we are back today with day 2 of our character traits, and for some reason my video will just not show up. I even went through the trouble of putting makeup on today for you kiddos, and it just will not come up. So we're gonna roll through without the video of me, but you can still see my screen. All right, so today what we are doing is we are digging deeper into character traits, and we are going to be able, by the end of today, to be able to at least analyze character traits and to describe characters using a list of traits, okay? We're not yet quite at being able to talk about motivation and change. We're going to get there, but what we're going to do is we're just going to dig in and talk about analyzing character traits. So last night, your homework was to read chapters 1 and 2 of Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I love this book. I giggle every time I read this book. It's so cute. Fudge makes me laugh. And so before we really dig in and get started, you had a check-in this morning where you answered these questions just to kind of refresh our memory over what we read last night or yesterday, and just kind of getting ready to dig in and start talking about Fudge and talking about Peter and being able to describe them using what we know about inside traits, which is how a character is thinking, acting, feeling, and speaking. Okay, so if you didn't go in and answer these questions, please do so. All right, and here's a little review for us. We know that Fudge is the little brother. He's 2. He's Peter's little brother, right? Peter says he is his biggest problem. Peter is the main character of our story. He is 10 years old, and he's the one who won Dribble, which is number 3 at the birthday party. He's a little bitty baby turtle. And then we said, what are 2 adjectives that describe Fudge? And so when we talk about yesterday, remember we talked about describing characters, what were 2 words that you could think of to describe Fudge? Now, my 2 words are going to be goofy. I definitely think he's goofy, and I definitely think he's mischievous. And, mischievous means that he's up to no good all the time, okay? But you could have told me what he looks like. You could have told me anything to describe Fudge. And then we have to think about how Peter feels about Fudge. Well, remember, Peter said that Fudge is his biggest problem. So what do you think that makes him feel? Maybe he's annoyed with Fudge, doesn't really like Fudge. Of course he likes him, he's his brother, but we all get annoyed with our siblings sometimes. And then what was our opinion of Mr. and Mrs. Yarby? Okay, remember they came and visited in chapter 2. So now that we've kind of warmed up and we remember what we've read, we're going to dig in today, and we're actually going to use what we read in chapters 1 and in chapter 2 to help us on our journey of describing characters. So we know that in order to describe characters, we're going to have to use these 2 skills. We're going to have to be able to make inferences, which is where we use clues in the text, what I know, put it together to make an inference. And we're also going to have to use some text evidence, which is where we cite word for word what the author said. Okay, and so we're going to have to make an inference on how the character is thinking, acting, feeling, or speaking, and then we're going to give text evidence to prove it. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to dig deep into specifically the inside traits of a character, the emotional traits of a character. And remember, characters are anything that can think. And we've kind of already gone over some characters that we saw in our novel. We know we've got Peter's mom, we've got Peter's dad, we have Peter, we have Fudge, Mr. and Mrs. Yarby, Dribble. Those are all the characters that we've kind of been introduced to so far, and what we're going to do today is dig in and make inferences about them and then use some text evidence to prove it, okay? So remember, there are 2 ways to describe characters. What they look like on the outside, we call these physical traits, and what they feel like on the inside, okay? And so we know that inside traits are how a character is thinking, acting, feeling, and speaking. Okay, and so we know that when we talk about characters, we are talking about what do we know about how this character might be thinking? What might this character be? How might he be acting, or why is he acting that way? How do we think they could be feeling? What words are they saying, and why do we think they're saying those words? All of those things are connected, and all of those things are going to help us make inferences. So if I know how a character is acting, if I know that he just punched somebody in the face, I can make inferences on probably what that character was thinking or what that character was feeling. If I know the words that came out of a character's mouth and they were mean and ugly words, then again, I can make an inference on how that character was feeling or what that character was thinking. They're all connected together, kiddos. And if the author tells me how a character is feeling, then I might be able to make some inferences about what kind of thoughts are going on. What kind of words do we think they're going to say? Okay, all of those things are connected. So we just have to remember that outside traits are what they look like. Inside traits are those thinking, acting, feeling, speaking traits. Okay? So these are some examples that we went over about physical traits. Remember, physical is anything we see. So blonde, blue eyes, brown hair, beautiful, red hair, freckles. And emotional traits are going to be those traits about how they think, act, feel, and speak. So any of those words there would be great words to use to describe them. So I want you to think for a second. How did that mini lesson that we've gone over, what we've done the last couple of days, how does it relate to our goal of being able to describe and analyze characters, traits, motivations, and changes? I want you to think. Well, we know that we can't do any of those things if we don't know what characters are and if we don't know what character traits are. And so the last couple of days, we've been laying that groundwork of being able to know what those things are. And then we're actually going to dig into and be able to look at how do I do this. Okay, so what I want you to do is we're just going to look at my I do, and then I'm going to set you loose for a we do. Okay, so here is my model. I know that I can infer character traits by using clues in the text, what I know, put it together to make an inference. So I've got to ask myself while I'm reading these very important questions. How is this character thinking? How are they acting? How are they feeling? Or how are they speaking? And when I ask myself those questions, I am gearing myself up. I'm getting ready. I'm looking for those clues to make an inference about a character trait. Okay? So let's look at this for an example. Now, this is not from our novel, but the ones you will do today are. Says, LaChina woke up with a strange feeling in her stomach. Today was her first day of school. What if her teacher didn't like her? What if the other kids in class made fun of her? Okay, so I've got some good clues there. Here's my question. How is LaChina feeling? And how do I know? So before I make inferences, I have to first gather clues. So when I grab my pen here, blue looks fine, I am going to highlight anything that can tip me off to how she is feeling. Well, she had a strange feeling in her stomach. Okay, today was the first day of school, and she's asking herself these questions. What if her teacher didn't like her? What if the other kids in class make fun of her? Okay, so now that I have some really good clues, I need to take a step back and I need to ask myself, how is this character thinking, acting, feeling, or speaking? I'm going to use this graphic organizer that you see over to the side of your screen to help me organize my clues. So here what we're going to see is what the character says. We'll type out here. This can be any words that come out of their mouth, what the character thinks, anything that the character is kind of saying to herself or thinking about in her head, and what the character does, the actions that we see from the character. Those things are going to give us clues about how they could be feeling. So let's look at what I came up with. Okay, so it says here what the character thinks. She didn't really say anything. No words came out. So I left that box blank, which is totally fine. I don't have to fill in every box. I only have to fill in the boxes that are applicable to what I've read. So if my character doesn't say anything, I don't have to put anything in that box. But she did think a lot of things. She thought things like, what if her teacher didn't like her? What if the other kids in her class make fun of her? I want you to notice, okay, that I wrote this down word for word. I wrote down what the character thinks word for word out of the passage. Remember we talked about we're going to have to use some skills today. We're going to have to make some inferences, but we're also going to have to use some text evidence to prove it. And we know that we quote text evidence word for word. So I pulled those clues word for word from the passage, okay? And then what else do we have here? What the character does. She woke up with a strange feeling in her stomach, okay? Woke up with a strange feeling in her stomach. Again, that is quoted word forward. Those are not my own words. Those are the author's words. Okay? All right, so now we're ready to make our inference. We've got some good clues in the text. We've asked ourselves, how is this character thinking, acting, feeling, and speaking? Now we're ready to make that inference. Okay? So we know the inferences are clues in the text, and now we got to do that background knowledge part. What I know. What do you know about somebody who, when it's their first day of school, they are asking themselves these questions? What if the teachers don't like me? What if the kids are mean to me? Okay, she had a weird feeling in her stomach. What do you know about those things? Well, I know, thinking back to when I was in school, or guys, I have these same feelings at the beginning of every year. And I may not worry if the teacher doesn't like me because I am the teacher, but I do worry if you guys are going to like me. Okay. And I always have a strange feeling in my stomach. And I like to say that that's me being nervous. So my inference is going to be that LaChina was nervous for her first day of school. And notice that I wrote that inference in a complete sentence. A capital letter at the beginning, a period at the end, a subject, a predicate, all of it. It is a complete sentence. Okay? So let's recap what we've done here. I read the card. I read the question. I stopped and asked myself, how is this character thinking, acting, feeling, or speaking? I took clues from the text. I underlined them with my pen. I wrote them in the correct boxes, word for word. Then I stopped. I thought about my background knowledge. What do I know about a person who's saying those things, thinking these things, or doing these things? Then I made an inference about how she was feeling, and I wrote my inference in a complete sentence. Okay? This is what you guys are going to be doing for me this week. Okay? And so this is the video that you're going to come back to over and over and over again. So tomorrow's is the same video that you're going to see. I just really want you paying attention to this I do part, this model part, okay? Where I really sit and I really think hard about my character, how they're thinking, acting, feeling, and speaking, my background knowledge about those things, and then making inferences about them. Okay? All right, kiddos, it is time for a we do. What you're going to do, this is going to be called, let's probably say, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Inferences 1 and 2. Okay, it's kind of long, I know, but it'll probably be abbreviated T4G for Tales, 4th grade, and then nothing with an N, so T4GN. I think is usually how I abbreviate it. And then it's just going to be chapters 1 and 2, because that's what we read. So that's what this we do is going to be called. And then going forward, your we do's will be called like the same thing with the chapter on them. And so just go back to your agenda if you need it to be sure about what we do that you're going to be on. I want to go ahead and show you your we do. Every we do is going to look just like this week. And so no matter if today you're working on 1 and 2, or today you're working on chapter 3 and 4, they're all going to look the same. So your we do is going to, let me clear my screen. Sorry, kiddos. Okay, so you're going to have an excerpt from the book. This is something that we read. It even tells you what page it is on if you want to go back in the book and read around it if you feel like you need more information. And then I have given you highlight bars. So you're going to do exactly what I just did. Okay, you have an excerpt just like I did. You're going to highlight clues just like I did. You're going to go in and you're going to type. Look, you can type in all of these boxes. Tell me what the character says. Tell me what the character thinks. Tell me what the character does. And then based on what the character says, thinks, and does, I can infer, and then give me your inference in a complete sentence. Okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. Go back and rewatch the video if you need to. You're going to do a couple of these questions today, and then there's going to be a video for you to go check your work. All right, kiddos? I hope that you have a good time digging into this novel this week. I love this novel, and I cannot wait to see the awesome answers you guys come up with.